Hello everybody, good afternoon and welcome to Italy. It's the Fiat Professional MXGP of Lombardia. We're back in Ottabiano and this weekend marks the halfway stage of the FIM Motocross World Championship. The second half of the championship, I should say, because a week ago we were round 10 and you know, it's all going to start getting tasty from here on out, I think. But we've got a great show lined up today. I've got Jason Thomas here from Fly Racing. He'll join me not just on the studio show here, but also during commentary this weekend on MXGP TV. Just the one guest, Thomas Covington from Rockstar Energy Husqvarna Factory Racing. And what we've decided to do this weekend is swap it up a little bit. Because we are entering the second half of the season, thought we'd give you a mini season review so far. MX2 will be in segment 2, and then MXGP season review in segment 3. But before we start, let's just introduce you to our weekend guest here, Mr. Jason Thomas, Fly Racing. Good to see you.
Thank you.
No stranger to the FIM Motocross World Championship. We also saw you last year in Florida. You're a regular visit to the Monster Energy Motocross of Nations. But you're here in Italy. What brings you here, first of all?
I had some business meetings with Alpine Stars on Friday. And yeah, what a better weekend to take in MXGP. So got to do some business, get to see some racing. And it's nice to get different perspective, right? So the company I'm affiliated with, Fly Racing, has gotten more and more involved in this series, and yeah, it's good to have a presence.
And how long have you been actually in Italy? Just a couple of days?
Yeah, I just landed on Thursday afternoon, so still fighting the jet lag a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the weather's beautiful. The racing's going to be awesome. It's going to be a good weekend. All
right. Well, I feel all kind of inverted commas yanked out at the moment because I'm the only non-American on the studio show this week. Thomas Covington, though, Rockstar Energy Husqvarna Factory Racing. Welcome to our studio show. I don't know, I've just been, before we came here this weekend, I was working out that actually at this stage of the championship now, you're in a similar position to where you were last year. 8th in points with 211, and I worked out that this time last year it was 7th on 225. So, you know, it's very, very similar. So what do you make of that in terms of the way that things are going?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit disappointed with how the season's gone so far with the, you know, the kind of nagging knee injury from Nations last year. You know, it caused me to miss a few motos, but you know, I feel like I'm back in race shape now, back to myself, and looking forward to, you know, running up front the rest of the season.
Well, as you said, you feel like generally in good shape. Again, last year, 1 GP win, 1 race win. This year, 2 seconds overall, 2 race wins in 18. On paper, at least, the stats are, you know, a couple more podiums, but a couple more race wins as well. Happy with your speed? Happy with your fitness as we head into the second half of the season?
Yeah, for sure. I think the speed and fitness are right there. The only thing that's really been struggling for me is the start. Just being consistent up in the top 5 on every start is super important because, you know, if you let the KTM boys out front, it's hard to chase them down. So really important to be up there at the front right at the beginning of the race. And if I do that, I know I can, you know, battle for the win.
Well, I mean, that's a great ride last week, obviously, but you jumped out front and we saw what you could do with it. Yep. Didn't seem very excited on the podium. He tell you know, from my perspective, it looked like he knew he let one get away there, right? Wins are tough to come by, and I could kind of see it in your face. You know, your face kind of said it all. But you know, how is that true, or how are you feeling on the podium? You know, a 1-3 is great, but I felt like you could have got one that day.
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of bummed. Like the whole team was so pumped, you know, having Olsen on the podium as well. It was the first time the teams had both their riders on the podium, so it was a big deal. And yeah, I was pretty pissed actually. Just especially because those last laps, Gertz was so close to me right there. I didn't realize actually how close he was, or that it was possible to catch him, because at the beginning of the race, he was just way out there. The first 2 were gone. So yeah, I just wish I could have got that pace a little bit earlier in the moto that I had towards the end, and I think I could have got him.
Well, it was a fantastic win, start to finish as well. Foxhole shot. Doesn't get any better than that, does it? How gnarly was that start straight, though? It was pretty heavy, as we saw, freshly plowed, freshly watered overnight from the rain.
Yeah, for sure. The whole track actually turned out really good.
Yeah.
But the start was like just a swamp, and actually for that reason only, we put the scoop tire on. I think me and Olsen were one of the only ones to run it just for the start. And, you know, on a typical French hard pack track like that, you'd never run a scoop tire. So it's pretty weird. But, yeah, like I said, you don't really have a chance without the start. So we just sort of gambled on that.
Yeah, did you notice the lean angle being tough with the scoop? I really like the scoop on the start, but man, on a hard pack track, just trying to lean and have any real stability is tough.
It for sure with the old Pirelli scoop, it was really difficult. We probably wouldn't have ran it if we were still using the old one, but the new one, there's quite a bit more rubber that's laying down on the ground and more side bite as well. So actually, I don't think it slowed me down at all around the track.
Nice.
We just saw a moment ago the clip from that second race win of the year, but earlier in the year at Trentino, you got your first race win of the season. Pretty tight, you know, last half a dozen corners or something like that. I think we've got it coming up here, actually. Just talk us through this, because obviously in a great battle with Prado, and you kind of picked your moment very, very emphatically, I would say. 2 corners, 3 corners from now.
Yeah, no, like right here it's shown. I knew I had a little better line at the end of these rollers going around the outside. And I was thinking I could kind of push him out to the outside here. And I got there just in time to, like, kind of scare him into the second line, I think, and then, you know, got him towards the end of the corner. But, yeah, that was an unbelievable race.
You still had a lot to do at that point, though.
Yeah, still had half a lap. I figured he'd be coming for me, but I was able to make it stick. And, yeah, that's one of the most memorable races of my career for sure.
And, I mean, obviously, Jorge this year, he's stepped up his game a little bit as well. He's got a few wins under his belt. But hard pack conditions like that, hard, slick, stony, least favoured for you? Or was it quite technical in other areas, and are you more of a technical rider, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to excel when the track's really technical and rutted. But, you know, the last couple of years, I don't really prefer one type of track to the other, you know. I really like the sand. Like in Latvia, I've had some good races, and as well as on hard pack tracks like this in Arca, I ride really well. So,
what about this one? I know that was tight, but this was even tighter, wasn't it? Sweden, 2017.
Yeah, this is about as tight as it gets right here. Yeah, but,
a bit ugly in the corner, but just what, 0.055 of a second, and you see the reaction there. You're like, yeah, I got it. And Jeremy's body language, look. He's like, I got it. And they were like, second? I led all the race.
He was so confused, he actually asked if he was third at one point.
Yeah.
No, but some great racing this year. I know in your post-race interview a week ago, you mentioned that you were heading home. Obviously, you're going to be filling in for Zach next year. But I was talking to your dad at Matchley Basin, and he said the deal was already done. And but he didn't think that it would be inconceivable that you would, you know, fancy a return back to MXGP sometime in the future. And I said, wow, you really like it here? And it was like, yeah, he just loves it.
Yeah, I've had an awesome experience in the GPs, you know. When I decided to come over, you know, it was pretty strange for most people for me to decide to come to the GPs when I had a deal set in stone in America, you know, and chose to come to GPs. That's something that nobody's really ever done at this point in their career. It's usually towards the end or something like that. And I think that alone just made my mindset a bit different, and I really enjoyed everything about the GPs, and you know, I'm going to miss it a lot when I leave. You know, I'm going to miss all the people, and you know, coming to these cool places, it's definitely going to be a big change for me. But yeah, you never know in the future. If the opportunity comes up, maybe I'll be back here racing the 450 class.
All right. Well, look, Thomas, we are out of time, unfortunately, but thanks for joining us here, and we will wish you all the best of luck here and for the second half of the season.
All right, thanks
Thomas
for having
Covington,
me on.
Rockstar Energy has Final Factor Racing. Right, let's catch up with some highlights, though, from the MXGP of France a week ago. Here's action from MX2, Race 2.
A completely different racetrack to what the riders experienced in Race 1. A lot drier, a lot more open. Jacoby was buried mid-pack as he went through the first turn, as Jonas took his 4th foxhole shot of the year, closely shadowed by Jargo Kietz on the Khmer Yamaha and Jorge Prado. Jonas, though, made a mistake on the very first lap. Prado was all of a sudden the lead Red Bull KTM rider. Calvin Valandren was also in the mix for Team HRC, but very lucky to get away with this. So too was Michele Chervelin on the SM Action Migliori Yamaha. Covington made a poor start, but was charging through the field at a relentless pace. He soon had his teammate in his sights, but Thomas Kjær-Olsen had other ideas. He found his way past the Yamaha of Michele Chervelin to move into 4th place. Eventually, Covington found his way past the Italian as well, but he was bringing with him the Team HRC rider of Calvin Valandren. That was the move that put Covington up into 4th position. and he duly set about going after his teammate, as these two mixed again. Ben Watson and the F&H Kawasaki of Ruben Fernandez jostled for position. Eventually, Watson went through and would come home in 7th as Fernandez faded to 14th. But Chervelin was having a fantastic ride. Jonas found himself on the rear wheel of the Yamaha though, and with a few laps to go, made a neat move down the inside to carve his way into 6th. Chervelin would eventually come home in 8th after Watson found his way through. That was the pass for Covington. Put him into 3rd. He was tied on points with Jorge Prado at the overall standings. But it was Prado who managed to win race 2. That was his 6th race win of the season. Jago Geerts for Khmer Yamaha came home 2nd. That was his best race finish of the year. Covington was 3rd. Thomas Gear Olsen 4th and Balanen was 5th. And the overall finished Prado, Covington and Olsen. That was Prado's 4th Grand Prix finish of the year. Covington's 2nd podium. And the lead before we came here was 28 points between Jonas and Prado. As we head to Ottabiano, it's now just 16 between the two Red Bull KTMs. But a fantastic weekend here at Saint-Jean-d'Angely for Jorge Prado.
Hello everybody, welcome back to our studio show here on MXGP TV. Part 2, and Jason Thomas and I were going to give you a mini season review at the moment. We've just passed the halfway stage, and we just thought this part concentrate on the MX2 riders. And after the first 3 rounds, Jason, kind of looked like Paul Jonas had this one in the bag. Okay, it's still a long way to go, but he went 6 from 6, 3 overall wins, a couple of wobbles. It's not really been the case, has it, as we've seen recently between him and his teammate Jorge Prado. There's been a couple of wobbles along the way. Yeah,
it's been a pretty big shift. I think he had the series in hand after the first few rounds and probably was pretty confident.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been really impressive to see Prado kind of shift that momentum. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got images here now coming up from Jonas and Prado. I think Prado was winning. He won the first round, as we said, emphatically in Argentina. Made it look so easy. He came in the most well prepared. Sure. Prado, to his I guess, to his fairness, really had a couple of crashes and that kind of thing. But this guy here, the defending champion, set the pace. And as I said, from that race and when we went to Valkenswaard and Spain, didn't look like anyone else was going to get a look in.
No, I was really impressed. I thought Prado working with Cairoli would be much better this year, and he has proven that out. But early, it was all Jonas.
And with Prado, this weekend, as we saw in France, or this past weekend, another victory, 4 in the season now, I believe. When he's on, there's no stopping him, is there, either? Yeah. Because the way that he looks, he's grown a few inches as well, working with Claudio. I mean, how do you see the second half of the season going between the two Red Bull guys?
Well, as the temperatures rise, right, I think that will be the story for Prado, because in years past, that's really been, the problem. So this weekend, we're getting a little taste of the heat. So if he really responds this weekend and can put another win on the board, in the heat, I think that's going to be a clear signal to Paul Jonas that this championship may be up for grabs.
Yeah, well, it's down to, as if you were just watching a moment ago, the highlights from the MX2 race from France. The gap has come down to 16 points now between those two. So we're talking tight margins at the moment, are we? And last year, this was one of those rounds where Prado suffered in the heat.
Yeah. Jonas made a big mistake in France last week. That was a costly mistake and probably unnecessary because he was out front and in the front. Usually those mistakes happen when you're in traffic. So we'll see if it costs him in the championship or not.
What about third in points? Thomas Kjær Olsen, Rockstar Energy Husqvarna, got his win in Latvia just like he did last year. Yeah. He's had a few podiums already, but 1 or 2 inconsistent rounds as well. He was unfortunate at Matterley Basin as well.
Yeah, Matterley Basin jumps out at you, right? Two DNFs. And to be third still in the points is impressive. That speaks to his results other than Matterley Basin. So that's the story moving back, is just the inconsistency. So if he can get up front, maybe he can stay there. And
he is, of course, the only rider to prevent a clean sweep of KTM victories. He's the only guy other than KTM that have got a Grand Prix victory this year. A circuit not too dissimilar to this one. I know this is your first time here, but when you see Latvia on TV, they're flat with a lot of man-made stuff. It's sandy, a hard base underneath. Should we be expecting big things from him this weekend? And again, how do you see him sort of shaping up in the second half of the season? Because in some ways he's put himself under pressure with Ben Watson, who we'll talk about in a moment, with those 2 DNFs at Matterley.
Yeah, I think mentally you come into an event knowing that conditions favor you. So if you see him get a good start, I think he's going to have flashbacks of Latvia and think he can win. Yeah. If he doesn't, that could change, you know. So these younger guys, it's such a mental game.
Yeah. And what about the Yamaha threat? We've got 2 young kids in there. Ben Watson just turned 21 on the 5th of June, I believe. And Jargo Geerts, both the Kamea riders. And both of them made podiums for the first time. Ben Watson here in Russia. And Jargo Geerts, who we'll see in a moment, he got his first podium, 2nd overall in Latvia. Who's impressed you the most out of these 2?
I would say Jargo, because I didn't know much about him. Yeah. So to see his pace, you know, to see him 2nd in the final moto last weekend, it was kind of out of nowhere, and that's just my own ignorance on it. So I've known about Ben Watson. It wasn't as much of a surprise. So to see them in the mix for podiums, that's a big, you know, it's awesome for the series and a big surprise for me.
And the big surprise, I think, from everybody at Kamea was the fact that Watson got his podium on the hard pack, because he's, like Jargo here, it's more of a sandman.
Right.
In this particular moto here, Jargo was challenging for the win towards the end of the race with Thomas Kjær-Olsen and Jorge Prado. Big moment for him. When you're in that position as a youngster coming through, and I'm sure you know you've had it as well, once you have a breakthrough moment, doesn't matter whether it's from 15th to 10th or 10th to 5th. Yeah. In his case, it was top 3 challenging for a race win and getting the podium.
Right.
That's does wonders for the confidence levels, doesn't it, normally?
Well, it's belief, right? You know, you go through so many events, and Jorge and Paul Jonas have been setting such a high pace that you look at the timesheet and there's no way I can ride with those guys, right? But you go through these rounds and you're improving, and those guys become beatable in your mind. And the mind, especially with these young guys, as you said, is half the battle. You know, the talent is there, the equipment's there, but the belief is that final step, and you're seeing that play out now where these guys believe they can beat them.
What about Honda? Calvin Verlanderen, obviously, he's the lead guy at the moment, as you would expect. Team HRC, the factory Honda. And then you got Hunter Lawrence, 114 Motorsports. Both have had podiums, Hunter at the first round, and then Calvin, he had back-to-back in Germany and at Great Britain. What have you made of you know, the guys in red at the moment? And should we expect more from Honda?
Well, you know, Hunter Lawrence has a big name in the States right now. You know, his incoming season next year and his performance in Jacksonville this past season, he made a name for himself. So everyone's kind of been scratching their heads at his performances. Verlanderen, a little bit of a lesser-known guy for me, but he's been really impressive this year. He's been, you know, as you can see here, he's really not scared to battle with these guys and mix it up. So for HRC, I think if they can get Hunter Lawrence back on track and have 2 guys inside the top 5, that would look like a much better season than thus far.
And you said a moment ago, you know, you're kind of disillusioned a little bit with Hunter's performances, because what we saw at the start of the year, debut podium for the new team managed by Olivier Lancelot. He came in all swinging and dancing, didn't he? You know, looked like he was going to be a major threat. And after the Motocross of the Nations, as you said, we expected it as well. But it's just not happened. I know he's been unlucky with a couple of injuries, head injuries or whatever. But he was already kind of dropping after that first round. You know, he wasn't that consistent in Holland or Spain.
Yeah, you know, it's a team switch, a bike switch, and then Honda's working through a brand new motorcycle as well. So there's a lot of change in his program, and it'll be really interesting, I think, for his future to sort this out in the second half of the series. If he continues to struggle, confidence goes down, then he's going to have another change moving to the States. So there's, you know, he wants to, I would think, move to a different series on a high note, just as he ended last year. So I think this second half will be really pivotal for him.
And he's got no pressure now, has he? He came in as a title favorite because of what he did at the Nations. All that pressure is gone.
Yeah, I'm sure he's frustrated more than anything. You know, his future is set as far as moving over, but it's really difficult to wake up every day and look at the points and look at the results and know you're not where you should be, right? So I think one of these weekends he's going to have a breakout. You know, the sand treated him very well in Florida, so maybe this is the weekend. All
right. Well, look, more from Jason in a moment, and we'll see our MXGP review in just a couple moments. But would you like to know how you can win with Fiat and MXGP this weekend? Well, here's how. This weekend, during this Fiat Professional MXGP of Lombardia, MXGP partners up with Fiat Professional for a like and share on our MXGP Facebook page. It will all be worth it in the end, as Fiat Professional is giving you the chance to win 2 VIP Gold Skybox passes to a 2018 MXGP round of your choice, as well as winning some Fiat Professional goodies, an MXGPTV.com season pass, and a copy of MXGP3, the official motocross video game. All you've got to do is like and share this post on our Facebook page. And the contest ends on Tuesday, just in a few days' time, on the 19th of June. So start liking and sharing now. Right, we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, Jason and I, with our MXGP mini-season review. Enjoy these clips, though, from MXGP Race 2 from France a week ago.
After showing his hand early in race 1, Jeffrey Hurlings went to the outside gate again. Roman Fevre this time started alongside him and nudged the Dutchman to the outside. And it was Tony Cairoli who crossed the Fox whole-shot line for the 11th time this season. Tony Cairoli got his head down as well as he tried to pull clear from Siwa, Geiser, Paulin, Pacharel and the rest of the pack. Geiser was quickly into second. Behind him, Siwa, Paulin, Hurlings, De Sal fell on the opening lap. The Panda would pick himself up in 12th place as Alex Lupino launched his Kawasaki over the fence. Hurlings found his way onto the rear end of Gauthier Paulin, made that move to go into 4th as he got his head down after making a poor start to the race. That move on Jeremy Siwa put him into 3rd. Just 2 riders were ahead of him at that point as Paulin followed Hurlings through past Siwa. And the Frenchman was now into 4th. Siwa then lost out to Romain Fevre. The Monster Energy Yamaha rider started to pull clear of the Wilbo Yamaha rider. Having a great ride was the 128 on the iFly JK Racing Yamaha of Ivo Monticelli. He started in 9th and got as high up as 7th at one stage. Jeffrey Hurlings, trying desperately hard to find his way past Geiser, made 1 or 2 little mistakes that allowed the Slovenian to stay in 2nd. But for how much longer? Hurlings dived up the inside on 2 occasions in 2 corners, and that was the move that put him into 2nd. It was around about the halfway stage of the race. Meanwhile, the 2 French riders, Romain Fevre on the Monster Energy Yamaha and Gauthier Paulin's Rockstar Energy Husqvarna, were closer than they needed to be. Both riders managed to stay up, but it was Fevre who took 4th from Paulin. That's where they would stay when the checkered flag fell. Cairoli, though, was on borrowed time. The clock was ticking as his teammate was closing in. A 9-second gap was reduced to nothing as Hurlings went through with 5 to go. Clement de Sal neatly dove up the inside of Jeremy Siwa to take 6th in what was a hard race for the Belgian, but it was Jeffrey Hurlings who claimed his 16th race win of the year, and with it, the overall Grand Prix win. His 8th of the season, 7 of those now coming with a double moto win. And Tony Cairoli lost 8 points to his teammate Jeffrey Hurlings this weekend, and Hurlings is now 62 points clear of his Italian rival. De Sal is still 3rd. The overall podium, though, Jeffrey Hurlings, Tony Cairoli and Tim Geiser. It's looking good after 10 rounds now for Jeffrey Hurlings in MXGP. Next stop, the sand of Ottobiano. Cairoli won there last year. What will we get this time round?
Right, that was a week ago, and obviously if you've been following MXGP on social media, in particular Jeffrey Hurlings, then you'll know that the Bullet, the championship leader by 62 points, is out of the MXGP here, the Fiat Professional MXGP of Lombardia. Big news, Jason Thomas. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was on my way to the airport when I heard the news, so I immediately started thinking about how this changed the championship, right? Yeah. So I think the door's open for Tony. I think he's been waiting for this for a while, and now is his time to respond.
Yeah, and obviously these two had a great battle here last year. Yeah. But let's crack on with our season review because we are almost out of time. But interesting in MXGP so far this year. This is Tony Cairoli's only win of the season up until now, round 3 in Spain at Red Sands. And he left there actually with the championship leader's red plate. So it's been a tough season for the defending champ.
Yeah, you watched this race in Spain, and this was seemingly the only one that Jeffrey got the timing wrong. He was coming. He just was a little late, and each and every moto after that, he seemed to say, okay, I need to go a little bit sooner, and he would close that gap, and Tony really couldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, not helped by his fall on the opening lap as well, and obviously he had to come from behind in that respect. But these two, though, certainly been putting on a show for us. It hasn't come without its fun and games, has it? Let's go to Matterley Basin, where just 2 weekends ago we saw a sublime pass from Jeffrey around the outside, helped by the fact that Tony bobbled in this wave section at the end. That changed the whole kind of juxtaposition of the race, didn't it? That moment right there.
It did, and you can see Jeffrey's aggression go up there, right? He sees the door open. Tony's now a little panicked. His heart rate spikes. So these guys are always, you know, trying to check each other and find openings, and that one mistake led to a pass right here two corners later.
Yeah, and it wasn't. I mean, every time you see it, it gets better and better. But Tony did what he needed to do, which a lot of people don't do immediately when you get passed by Jeffrey, is he responded, and he found a way back within 2 or 3 corners.
Yeah, I would think Jeffrey could count on one hand how many times he's been repassed by someone after making a move. So it was impressive to see Tony's aggression back here, you know, and it, man, what an incredible battle between these two all the way to the end.
A lap later, they come out of the final turn. Obviously, there's traffic ahead going into the final straight before they drop back onto the start straight. And then we had possibly the biggest talking point of the season so far.
Yeah, Jeffrey gets aggressive here, and it's interesting because you can see both of them see each other, right? So both of them had a chance to hesitate, and neither of them decided to take that route.
Yeah, and obviously Tony carrying a slight knee injury since then into France, but he's here now. He's, well, again, everyone's looking at it saying, well, this is great for him to capitalize, but I'm looking at it and saying, well, everybody else can also capitalize on this, not just Tony. The only guy to win a GP other than KTM this year is this guy here, Clement de Sal, Monster Energy Kawasaki. He did it in Russia for the 2nd consecutive year.
What a great ride from him, and this was dominant. He got the starts, but these guys were in position to win. If they had the pace or the ability to pass him, they would have. To Clement's, you know, credit, he commanded this entire race from start to finish.
It's strange, though, isn't it? Well, it's not strange in some ways. We've had 10 GPs, and we've had 9 victories from KTM, 8 of those Jeffrey, 1 from Tony, and just 1 from Japan.
Yeah, it's been Austrian domination thus far. You know, de Sal, and for me, this ride was out of nowhere. I had no indication this was coming other than the 2017 results. So I'm sure with the departure of Jeffrey Hurlings for a week or 2 here, he's seeing the opportunity as well.
What about Husqvarna? I know we joked earlier in you know, in the green room, if you like, about the French challenge, but Gauthier Paulin has won a moto. He's been on the podium on a very, very cold day in Valkenswaard. Did you expect more from Paulin this year, or is he kind of where you expect him to be?
For me, Paulin is a mystery wrapped in a riddle. I never know what to expect from him, but I can always count on one ride throughout the year where he is the best guy on the planet. We haven't seen that so far this year. It's coming, though, and maybe this is the chance. He knows Hurlings is out. Tony's nursing a knee injury, but it seemingly always happens, whether it's Motocross of Nations in Latvia or Motocross of Nations wherever. Paulin is coming.
We don't have a clip of Romain Febvre, but also Romain Febvre back on the podium for the first time in 10 races since Assen, the penultimate round last year. Got on the podium in Matterley Basin. Again, he's had a difficult couple of seasons since he won his title in 15. Seems to be working his way back, though.
Yeah, and I watched free practice a little while ago, and he was really aggressive. And you can almost see the enthusiasm level of these guys rise up as Hurlings is hurt, right? They sense the opportunity that's at hand. So it would be interesting to see if he can regain that form.
And what about Tim, HRC?
Tim's riding really well. You know, his ride in France was really impressive. He was, you know, head and shoulders better than the guys around him, other than, obviously, the 2 KTMs. So I think with a good start, if he can stay out of trouble, he should be on the podium again this weekend.
He was on the podium last weekend in France as well. Again, slowly. He's probably 100% fit now. It's just confidence took a massive dent at the beginning of the season with that pre-season crash. Another rider we don't have a clip of, Max Anstey, of course, went 1-1 at the Motocross of Nations.
Yeah.
And I know in some way, as a fan, that's kind of frustrated you a little bit as well. He was unfortunate with his head injury in Red Sand, But even before then, he probably didn't show those signs.
Yeah, it's just puzzling for me. You know, he has the ability, he has the talent, he's on, you know, a factory Husqvarna, right? I just don't know where the form is. And you could see him, he was bouncing off the top of the leaderboard in free practice this morning. So maybe with all the controversy around it and people wondering, maybe this is his weekend to shine. He seems to like the sand. He's had great results in the sand in the past. I think he was, you know, near the podium here last year. So maybe this is it.
Yeah. Well, look, Jason Thomas, thanks for joining us here on the studio show today. We are out of time. But join us on MXGP TV for all the qualifying races. And, of course, we've got EMX 250 and women's races this weekend as well. Qualifying for MX2, 4:25, and MXGP at 5:10. Jason and I will bring you all the commentary as the racing happens in all classes this weekend, so sit back and enjoy round 11 here, the Fiat Professional MXGP of Lombardia. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks when we go to Indonesia. Bye for now.